Hey guys, Dezz Asante here from the Tech Muse Academy with another mixlessons.com video quick tip. This one again comes from a fellow Gear Sluts forum member, Speaker's Moon, once again. He's got some interesting questions of late. So here's another one. He's talking about multiband compression. He says, "Hey guys, I just would like to know when I should use multiband compression during the mixing process. How can I know when to use it? Is it a mandatory tool during mixing, or better to leave it for the mastering process? I know that during mixing it's often used for drums, but how would I know when to start using it? I forgot to mention that I'm talking about electronic music, mainly deep house. Thanks for your knowledge." So it's a good question, and compression itself can be a bit mysterious in the beginning. Multiband compression simply compounds upon the mystery, I suppose you could say. But let's start off with a brief explanation as to what multiband compression is. Essentially, as you may know, what a compressor does is you set a threshold, a volume, an amplitude threshold, and whenever a signal breaches that threshold, the compressor will kick in and turn down the signal. Now, along with the makeup gain, you can, when it's turning down the signal, you can turn the whole thing back up again, so you don't lose any volume. And essentially what you've done is you've brought the lower level signals up closer to towards the higher level signals. So you're sort of balancing out the dynamics and making sure that none of those transients poke out too far. So that's essentially what a compressor does. Now, a multi-band compressor is the same thing, except it works on multiple specific bands of frequencies. So you might have the low band that's dealing with everything from 80 hertz and below. And that's a compressor, independent compressor, working on just those frequencies. And then you might have a mid band that's, going from, say, I don't know, low mids 100 to say 400 or 500. and it's a full out compressor working only on those bands, and so on. So you can have 3, 4, 5 bands depending on the compressor that you're using. So the idea with the multiband is so that you're able to apply compression frequency based. So if your overall signal is pretty good, but maybe there's some mid-range transients that are just a little excuse me, a little irritating to the ear, perhaps harsh or what have you, you can use a multiband to isolate those frequencies and have them be compressed in a particular manner, just those frequencies. So that's what a multiband compressor is. Now, in answer to your question, is it mandatory? Absolutely not. I've made many a mix that sound just fine. The clients were happy and paid me that did not use multiband compression at all. However, I like to leave you with one idea that I got from mix engineer Charles Dye. If you don't know Charles Dye, just look him up. His name's Charles, D-Y-E, Dye. He's a big proponent of software mixing. He probably has most notoriety for the Living La Vida Loca, which I believe was one of the first hit records that was produced mixed entirely in the box. So feel free to look him up. He's also a great teacher. But he brought across the idea of using the multiband compressor as sort of a dynamic EQ. And this was an idea that really intrigued me, and I've been playing around with it ever since. Essentially, what he likes to do, and I can say now I also like to do, is I like to put a multiband compressor on my stereo bus, and it's not doing very much. What I do is I take each of the band's thresholds down to the point where that band is just activating. It's just compressing a tiny, tiny bit. I'll do the same for each band. Just bring them down so that that line, in most multiband compressor plugins, there's a graphical display. So you can see where along the frequency spectrum it's being compressed. So you'll have your low frequencies being compressed and your mid frequencies being compressed. And you'll see this little line just dancing away as the various frequencies are receiving the compression as they breach the threshold by a little bit. And I'm talking a very small amount of compression, a dB maybe at the most. And what I'll do is I'll put this on fairly early in the mix process, and I'll mix through it. I'll mix into it. And I find that what this does is it has the effect of sort of smoothing out my EQ curve. Because like I say, your compressor is dealing with volume levels, and a multiband compressor is dealing with volume levels of individual frequency bands. So essentially, it's in real time dynamically EQing your track, your entire track, to sort of stay it's difficult to explain, to stay within a certain threshold, to stay sort of smooth around the edges. I find, and this is something I encourage you to experiment with, I find that when I've mixed through the multi-band compressor with just a very subtle amount of compression on each band, when I disengage the compressor, my mix tends to sound a little spiky, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term. Those transients start poking through again, and there's like a rough around the edges kind of sound to the mix, which might be appropriate for what you're going for. And again, this is something I like to play around with, not in every single circumstance, but because, you know, it all depends on the musical situation. And as you know, every musical situation is different. But I encourage you to try to think of your multi-band compressor as a dynamic equalizer and to try to approach it from that perspective and experiment with the settings, with the thresholds, the attacks, the releases. What I'll typically do is pretty much leave everything as the stock preset and then just drag my thresholds down until that line is starting to wiggle and dance a wee bit. And then, of course, adjust your makeup gain so that you're not losing any volume or any amplitude in the mix. And then mix through it. Make all of your decisions with that plugin engaged. And then when you've got a good sounding mix that sort of pleases your ear, try disengaging that multiband so you can hear the difference before and after. Again, gain stage. Make sure the volume of the mix is the same whether the plugin is engaged or disengaged, because that's the only way you're truly going to get a good idea into what the plugin's actually doing. So again, that's just one out of many ways that you can approach a multi-band compressor, but I just wanted to leave you with a quick explanation as to what it is and one interesting and perhaps somewhat unorthodox method of using one that I picked up from mix engineer Charles Dye. And again, look him up. He's got lots to teach. He's a very good, well-spoken instructor as well. And he's got a product called Mix It Like a Record. That's a DVD tutorial on modern in-the-box record mixing. So highly recommend it. Check it out. And I hope that helps. I just want to leave you with this one last thought. I'm not sure if you knew this or not, but these video quick tips series that I put together are available as a podcast in the Apple iTunes directory, also in the BlackBerry podcast directory, and I'm pretty sure in Zune as well. So if you'd like to sort of just subscribe, set it and forget it, and make sure you get all of these quick tips as they get released, then jump on into iTunes and subscribe. Search for Mix Lessons Online. While you're there, search for Tech Muse, because I do another podcast called the Tech Muse. It's just called Tech Muse, from the Tech Muse Academy, of course, as well. Subscribe to both of those, and I would greatly appreciate it if while you're there, you left me a quick review and rating, because it definitely helps my ego, for one, but it also helps me rank in the search engines in Apple's iTunes search engines, so more people can discover the show and hopefully gain some benefit from it. So once again, jump into iTunes, look for Mix Lessons Online or Tech Muse, and while you're there, leave me some feedback, and we'll see you on the next quick tip.